Just a quick review of the MOYOAMA, say that 10 times, rotator cuff pillow. Basically, this is something that you use a couple reasons. One is if you're just a side sleeper and you haven't had surgery and you need something to put your arm on while you're sleeping, this is actually a good choice. I mean, they make lots of other pillows, for side sleepers, and this is actually, you don't have to have surgery necessarily to get a lot of benefit from a pillow like this. And then, of course, the other reason is you've just had shoulder surgery. People that have shoulder surgery, they don't want to lay on the side they have, surgery on because, duh, it hurts. So they lay on the other side or on their back. But if you lay on your other side, that leaves your other arm, your operating arm on the top, and so it has a tendency to fall forward and puts tension on the tissues, and that hurts a lot, and people wake up and they can't sleep. So that's the whole idea behind the surgical pillow, letting you rest, supporting your arm so those tissues, have the tension taken off of it, and you just are more comfortable. And you can use it like in the picture here, sitting up, standing. Anyway, this has a few features I really like. It does have an adjustable strap on it, which I really like. It also has some pockets in it where you can put stuff in because, let's face it, we're always carrying something around, even if it's just our phone. And it also has a zipper that you can adjust the fill. So how that works is, let's say you get this pill and you're like, that is way too puffy. Well, it's got the zipper, you unzip it, and you can take out some of the fill that fills it up. And so then you can adjust it just perfect for you. Likewise, you can always add some more too. And the fill you can get, usually in the sewing sections of a lot of retail stores. So yeah, a lot of good features with this one I really like. So yeah, if you have rotator cuff surgery or shoulder surgery, you need something to support your arm, I think this is kind of cool. Got a few little options that some of them don't have. Now, if you do need some exercises, this is a really good resource. Or if you have struggling with a rotator cuff problem, or let's say you had one rotator cuff done and the other one needs to be done, maybe you can avoid it. The 6-minute torn rotator cuff solution for seniors, although I think any athletes could get a lot from this book. So I don't know what the seniors necessarily about. Basically, even if you just have a shoulder problem, like shoulder pain, you really need to be at least strengthening your rotator cuff. And I'll tell you why. Basically, the shoulder is a very shallow ball and socket joint, and it depends heavily on the muscles to support and stabilize it. Now, this is unlike, say, your hip, which is also a ball and socket joint, but it's a deep ball and socket joint. So here again, you got more inherent bony stability, but the shoulder's not like that. It's very shallow. The ball just kind of sits on the top of the cup there, the socket, and so really it can slip in and out pretty easily. Now, you have ligaments, of course, but basically muscles are really the big stabilizer of your shoulder joint. So here's the deal. The more shoulder stability you have, the less excessive motion you're going to have in your shoulder. And things are going to get irritated less because things are nice and stable and things are working the way they should. If you have a weak rotator cuff, you get excessive motion and tissues get irritated. So let's say you have like tendonitis, bursitis, shoulder arthritis. If you have a really strong rotator cuff, it's going to keep that ball and socket firmly in place, and the tissues and everything else isn't going to get irritated as much. So you're going to have a lot less pain. So a million reasons I give you to have a strong rotator cuff. Anyway, real briefly, book starts out with anatomy and stuff, like it should. Lots of pictures. If you're a real visual learner, you'll like it. And you'll know all about the rotator cuff when you're finished. Good question and answer section. Basically, this is like if somebody tore their rotator cuff, like, wow, I don't know anything about like what's going on. What are the symptoms of a tear? Any arm maneuvers that might indicate you have a tear? What imaging tests are used? Where exactly does it tear at? Are there different kinds of tears? Here's a real good one. I tore my rotator cuff and I'm having a lot of pain. I need surgery, right? Well, not necessarily, and I'll tell you why. This is a very evidence-based book, and it uses studies to support all its answers. Each one of these is a study in layman's terms, so it's easy to understand. So basically, the studies say they'll take 100 people that have a torn rotator cuff. They'll measure how big the tear is, and then they'll find out how much pain they're in. They'll run a pain scale, like a visual analog scale. So therefore, you have 100 people, you know the size of their tear, you know how bad they're hurting. Now, you think there would be a perfect correlation. Hey, the bigger the tear, the more pain they're in. That's not what they find in any of these studies. What they find is that there's actually a certain percentage of people that have big tears that actually have no pain at all. So the asymptomatic rotator cuff tear is really a thing, and it's well documented in numerous studies. So here's the deal. let's say you have shoulder pain, you get around having an MRI, they show you that you have a torn rotator cuff. You're thinking, oh, I got to get my rotator cuff repaired. That's causing the pain. Not necessarily. You really could have an asymptomatic rotator cuff tear, and there's really something else that's giving you all that pain. So you really need to rule that out. That's nothing you want to jump into. So it's not as clear cut as, I tore my rotator cuff and I'm having a ton of pain, so there, I got to get it fixed. Not really. What would happen if I just leave my rotator cuff tear alone? Here again, studies where they take people that have a rotator cuff tear and for some reason or another they just don't get it fixed. They don't treat it or anything. And so these researchers follow these people for like 5 or 10 years. So they say, so what happens to the tear over time? Does it get better, same, worse? Does it repair itself? How does exercise compare to surgery when it comes to treating my torn rotator cuff? Well, basically, the only way you're really going to know scientifically is by looking at the randomized controlled trials. So the randomized controlled trial is the highest form of proof in medicine that a treatment is actually effective. So here, a study like that would be you take 100 people with a rotator cuff tear. 50 you randomly assign to surgery, the other you randomly assign, the other 50 you randomly assign to a good exercise program. And then you follow them over time, you see who does better. So let's say like a year, 2 years after having your rotator cuff repair or doing an exercise program, okay, who did better? Which group did better? Was it the people that had surgery or the people that just did exercise? So a lot of these randomized control trials basically showing that you're going to end up at the same place, no matter what you do. And honestly, if you have shoulders, rotator cuff repair, you're going to be doing a lot of exercises afterwards anyway for rehabilitation. So you might as well start there first and see if it can fix your problem. Anyway, to that end, it does have an exercise program. There's 3 different levels, a beginning, intermediate, advanced, and literally this stretching and strengthening exercise, and literally will take you less than 6 minutes a day to do. So if you need a resource, that's a really good one. There just aren't that many good rotator cuff books around. But hey, if you had surgery already, you just need a good pillow, I think this is a good choice, so definitely check it out.